Hey there everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I'm your resident fantasy therapist and welcome back to my channel. Those of you here for the first time, welcome. My name is Kat Bowser. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also a writer working on my first novel. And on my channel, I like to dig into what I consider to be the heart of all writing, and that is in the characters. And the heart of the characters is in their psychology. So that's the angle we take on pretty much everything we talk about on my channel. So this video is a day or two late. This week, my mom was in the hospital for surgery, so I had other things on my mind. But I think it actually works out because today we're continuing with my Trope Diagnosis series, and this month I'm doing requested tropes. And since today, as of right now, when I'm filming, it is Valentine's Day, I'm going to tackle Kelly Martin's great suggestion, which is, why do girls go for the bad boy? Okay, so if you have read any kind of fiction at all, you've seen this trope. If you read predominantly YA fiction, you are probably sick to death of this trope. So this trope is, you have the bad boy, the guy that's a brooder, he's a loner, he's probably been in trouble with the law, and he's not respectful, he doesn't treat women well, but the girl still goes for him. That's what we're talking about today. And this is actually, I think, a very interesting trope because it really says a lot about our psychology. I was actually talking to my husband about this trope because my husband is what I would call a nice guy. Like even when he was younger and at high school, he was respectful to women. He was polite, very chivalrous, that kind of thing. And as he put it, the girls never came to him, which I'm grateful for, but I digress. And he actually, a couple weeks ago, he ran into a girl that he had been in high school with, and she essentially asked him, now that she's older, she looks back and she's like, why did I keep going for the trashy guys? Why can't I find a nice guy now? And my husband's response to her was, we've always been there. You just never looked at us before. And he's right, honestly. So that's what I want to talk about here is, why do girls look and seek the bad boy when 9 times out of 10 it's not good for them? So there's actually several factors at play here. So we'll just kind of tackle them one at a time. Okay, first factor. There is always the possibility that she seeks out men who were like the predominant male figure when she was a child. Yeah, I'm talking about the Electra complex, or the opposite sex version, the Oedipus complex. Now, is it entirely true how Freud listed it? Yeah, probably not. But there is some truth to, we seek out traits that we grew up with in potential partners, regardless of if the traits are good or not. The reason we do this is your predominant male and or female figure when you're a child is how you learn how a partner should treat their partner. It's essentially how you learn what love, quote unquote, looks like. So if you grow up in a positive household, this is very good. So you're going to be seeking out potentially partners that are good listeners, that are compassionate, that give you room to speak, that kind of thing. But if you grow up in a household where, say, for example, the father figure is always absent, maybe he drinks a lot, maybe when he gets angry he yells and hits things, you subconsciously seek that out because it was your first exposure to a figure that is modeling for you. And kids pick up on the littlest of things. So that is one factor. The other factor is this idea of wanting to heal. The girl essentially gets in their head, this guy is quote unquote broken, I'm going to fix him. No, you're not. People don't change honestly for other people, they change for themselves. Now, wanting to maintain a relationship with another person can be a motivator to do that, but they're still the one that has to make the change. You can't make somebody change. This is not something that a lot of people have figured out. And it's actually an interesting phenomenon because the girl that goes into a relationship wanting to quote unquote fix someone, it's very rarely just because of compassion. Now, they obviously have a compassionate nature or a nurturing nature. That's true. But the factor behind it is usually more of a survival mechanism. Because most of the time, these are women, or, I mean, everything I'm talking about in this video could be applied to same-sex relationships. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to use women in this example. So, but for these women, usually in their past, there has been a situation where they had to take care of someone. They had to provide something for someone, and that made them stay. Maybe that was a parent. Usually, most of the time, it usually is. Like if they had an alcoholic parent, for instance, and maybe they were the ones that were cooking and cleaning because the parent was incapable of doing it. Now they enter this relationship with someone who is quote unquote broken, and their thought is, well, if I provide something for this person that they don't have, they can't leave me. Because that's what they grew up with, this idea of, okay, I provide this, and so my parents stayed and made my life semi-stable. Because the funny thing is even kids, very little, they know that they have to have an adult to survive in this world. The brain is very good at figuring that out. So we start to do actions and behaviors to keep said adult in our life, even if they're doing horrific things to us. And that's kind of what happens here with the girl wanting to be the healer. Is she's essentially trying to find a way to keep a relationship together and have someone not leave. So they probably have a bunch of abandonment issues that they're dealing with as well. That's another theory. I am more inclined to believe it's a mix of things, but I'm also going to talk about a third theory here. And this one, I think, has the most weight thus far. So, this theory says that the girl is attracted to the bad boy for several reasons. One being, it's a sexual attraction. Whenever we are seeking out potential partners, our brain is subconsciously looking to widen our gene pool, because the wider your gene pool, then the more success generally you have at survival. So one example I'll give you guys of this is it affects what our preferences are. So for instance, in my family, I have brown eyes, my sister has brown eyes, my mother has brown eyes, my father has hazel eyes. Pretty much everybody in my family either has hazel or brown eyes. My husband has bright blue, beautiful eyes, and they are one of the things that I was initially attracted to because it is not in my gene pool. Likewise, everybody in my family is fairly short. My father is 5'7", which isn't, ridiculously short, but it's shorter than average for a guy. Me and my sister's 5'3", I'm 5'5". My mom, I believe, is 5'4" now. Both me and my sister. My brother-in-law is 6'1". My husband is 6 feet. Again, we're seeking out things that are different from our gene pool, and that's one thing that we look for when we're looking for potential partners is variance. So why does a bad boy look attractive? It's actually something called the dark triad. That consists of narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. So what does this mean? Essentially, people who have high self-image, a grandiose sense of self, people who have little to no empathy, people who are very manipulative, controlling, And yeah, that's kind of it summed up. I mean, there's obviously more traits in there, but that is the basis of it. So why the hell does this look attractive? um, well, one of the things is that one thing that we have noticed with research is that this is primarily most attractive to women that are under the age of 25, because they're generally not looking for a long-term relationship. They're looking for a short-term, I don't want to say fling, but something pleasurable for the short term, but not necessarily a long-term lasting relationship. And that's essentially what mating originally was, is just looking for someone to pass on their genes to the next generation, and it wasn't necessarily a relationship thing that came later. So when we're seeking out these traits, we're looking for something that will be passed on to the next generation. So that's one thing. They aren't looking for long term, generally, subconsciously. The other thing is most of the time when you're young, like we're talking about 13 to 25-ish, you're looking for something exciting. You're looking for something unpredictable, because this is the age where you're really discovering yourself. You're figuring yourself out, figuring out what you want to do. And in order to do that, you don't want mundane. You don't want something that's the same every day. You don't want predictable. You want excitement. You want essentially a roller coaster ride. And that's something that these men provide, is they're very unpredictable. They keep you guessing, not in a good way, but your brain doesn't really care about that. It just knows, okay, I'm getting an adrenaline rush from this relationship, and that's what my brain wants right now. So that's another factor in it. It's unpredictable. The third, and I really think this one probably has a ton to do with it, these people are confident, and confidence is alluring. Confidence is attractive. If you're like me as a writer, I generally don't have a ton of confidence. I've gotten a lot better at it over the years, but if you were to put me side by side with my sister has a lot more confidence than I do. She's a much more of an extrovert. I'm much more of an introvert. But if you guys want to try an experiment, fake confidence and see what happens. And by that I mean, when you walk down the street, look straight ahead, look up, keep your shoulders straight, keep a steady stride, and see what happens. I can almost guarantee you that people will start to treat you a little differently, because confidence triggers a response in people. And that's another thing that these bad boys have. They have confidence. Most of the time they have way too much confidence. And so I think it's all of these factors combined that make the bad boy alluring and make him attractive. But like I said, this tends to change about age 25, because that's when your brain finishes developing, and you really start to look at more long-term consequences, effects, things like that. So that's why a lot of times when we encourage people not to marry young, because of this. Because a lot of times what happens, they get in a relationship with someone, let's say they marry when they're 16, 17. And then by the time they hit 25, 26, 27, they're finding that this person is not a good stable partner, and that's not what they want. Now, obviously, there's exceptions to these rules. I'm not saying if you marry under 25, your marriage is going to fail. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying it is a trend. So what we see is as these people get older, they start to pull away from the bad boy, and they start to lean more towards the more stable and predictable relationship, because we figure out, hey, long term, I want to know what's going on. I want someone that is going to treat me right. I want someone that I can rely on. When you're just going for just impulse, give me something exciting right now, those traits don't really matter. But if you're wanting something long term and something stable, you definitely want all those traits. So that's what we see is a shift as we get older. And that's kind of the bare bones basics of it. This is something we're still actually researching because it's a fascinating phenomenon and we see it a lot. Not just in fiction, you see this a lot. So we're continuing to look into it. That's what we know thus far. And I think it's very interesting. And I do love it when stories try to take into account what the research has said. So thanks, Kelly, for making the suggestion. This was a lot of fun for me to research and delve into. So I appreciate that. If you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a comment below. I always love responding to them. If you subscribe, it'll make sure you don't miss whenever I upload again. And this month, as I said, I am doing all requested tropes. So far, I have about 2 weeks worth. So I still need about 4 to 8. So if you guys have suggestions for tropes you want me to delve into, please send them my way. I can't wait to dig into them. And until next time, I hope you guys have a good one and have a great, happy Valentine's Day.